A Song to the Tune of Love by It's_Kingston on AO3. Summary. They sit on a bench near UA, tucked snugly between green patches of mowed grass, off the edge of a concrete walkway. It became a routine. It was unnerving at first, the aftermath of a war. Uraraka hadn't slept right since, hadn't been able to calm down unless she checked all the corners of her house, peered into the shadows, and made sure they weren't peering back. She often reflected on those fights she had during their final stand. Or, Uraraka and Toga bump into each other at a park. Romance ensues. Episode 1, Chapter 1, Introductions. They sit on a bench near UA, tucked snugly between green patches of mowed grass, off the edge of a concrete walkway. It became a routine. It was unnerving at first. The aftermath of a war, Uraraka hadn't slept right since, hadn't been able to calm down unless she checked all the corners of her house, peered into the shadows, and made sure they weren't peering back. She'd often reflect on those fights she had during the final stand. It wasn't just the end for the heroes, but the villains too. A proper Armageddon. She sat quietly at the edge of her bed, wondering what happened to Toga after she ran. After that first encounter in the old wooden house, she'd avoided Uraraka, even during the fight. Uraraka had seen her through the clouds of dust and piles of rubble, running across the battlefield. She'd seen Toga raise a vial. That is when Kirishima standing there, running into the hero's backline with a knife. Then it was smoke, and she was gone. Uraraka had busted herself helping civilians, cautiously sweeping the area, waiting for Toga's reappearance. Yet she never came back. Days passed, blurred together as they fought on and off. Midoriya had disappeared alongside All Might and Eraserhead, past the no-man's lane that the center of the battlefield had become. Another day rolled by, and they were returned, several of the remaining League members in tow. That was the last time Uraraka had seen Toga, as she skeptically followed behind Shigaraki and Dabi, Spinner beside her. Just trustful, as the heroes were, when All Might pronounced the newly drafted Quirk Equality Act, it seemed they all let out a breath. Uraraka wasn't sure. She hadn't wanted the fighting, hadn't wanted the discrimination and fear that drove the villains to be that, but it felt too easy. Was that all the League of Villains wanted? A pardon and a promise? What was to say they wouldn't fall back into old habits? It wasn't like the law kept them in check before. With a sigh, Uraraka shook her head lightly, dropping her pencil onto her desk. How was she expected to do homework the week after a war ended? A city-wide attack was launched, so many buildings in disrepair, and Nezu wanted her opinion on the progress of hero suits in an essay form? She stood from her desk, grabbing her phone and earbuds, and stepped out the door. A light jacket pulled around her as she told her classmates she'd return soon enough. Then she was off into the lamp light. Spotify opened. She turned the volume up and up and up until she didn't have to hear herself think anymore. Until all it was words on another person telling her how to feel. The path took her to the gate. A gate swiftly opened and shut behind her, tossing her out into the city. Down the street was a park, lush and never closed. Best of all, it was empty and quiet now. The moon kept her company. As she walked, hands stuffed into her pockets, with her phone. The only thing she ever considered was whether she wanted to skip that song or not, and it was nice. She didn't consider the empty streets that the villains could hide in. She didn't once think about how helpless she'd be in a full-scale villain attack. Didn't even stop to wonder if she'd even brought someone with her. After all, the streets were safer now. Safer from the League. Though perhaps not low-down thugs, angry with the League's choice and wanting to take it out on anyone they could. Especially if that person was a hero. But Uraraka didn't think about any of that. She scrolled past the park, not thinking about whether her music would block out any footsteps, and found a nice bench to sit on. She stared up at the stars from that bench, wondered if she could float all the way up there with a spacesuit, and laughed quietly to herself. The lamplight extended over to her bench, coated her in a warm yellow shade. She looked down at her phone, punched in the password, and changed her playlists. Melodic nights needed music to match. At some point, she leaned back, closed her eyes, and mouthed the words. Uraraka wasn't much of a singer, let alone a public one, but she'd happily find some little way to engage with the overwhelming feeling music always brought forth, even if that was only tapping her foot. A song she meant to remove from her playlist months ago came through her earbuds, and she opened her eyes to skip it. That's when Uraraka noticed her. Suddenly tense, the mood dissipated, every muscle in her body ready for a fight. Toga glanced over at her, mouthed the words, "Hey," and smiled, even waved a bit. Uraraka was chase of waving back, though the wave was likely unnecessary. They were on the same bench, after all. Taking out her earbuds and eyeing Toga with a sort of apprehension reserved solely for a mysterious spider that had the knack of vanishing, Uraraka spoke. "Hey." Toga seemed to brighten at that. "I didn't know you liked this place. I always come here at night." "Oh, of course you do," Uraraka said quietly. Toga turned her head to the side, reminding Uraraka of a confused puppy. "What's that supposed to mean? It isn't like you wanted to get to know me or anything." Uraraka wasn't sure if that was supposed to read as a threat, but was more concerned with the way her smile dropped, faltering for a moment. It became a glare, bordering a pout. Uraraka swallowed, laughed dryly. "Well, it was a war, and all." "I know." Toga's smile came back. "No hard feelings." She stuck her hand out, and Uraraka recoiled, eyes wide. Toga narrowed her eyes. "Not a weapon." Uraraka sighed, nodded. "Just been on edge since the whole fighting thing. I didn't mean it like that." Toga retracted her hand, expression strange, unreadable. Uraraka had come to know her as peculiar, ecstatic murder with a taste of blood. Literally. Guess only most of that was true, judging by the slowly darkening look Toga wore. It worried Uraraka. Then she spoke. "'Cause of me?" Toga asked, voice light and guilty? Uraraka thought that to be guilt. "'Cause of you?" she repeated, a creasing form between her eyebrows. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Did I scare you? Make you upset?" Toga asked, and Uraraka figured she was referring their meeting to the building, where Toga lured her back there and crashed in through the door, knife in hand. Uraraka run her hands together. "You did. But it wasn't just you. The whole concept of war is insane. And over something that could have been resolved peacefully before anyone got hurt? Something that should have been resolved when quirks first started appearing." Uraraka mused. "I can't explain it. Just tense and shaky. You know what I'm talking about?" Toga shook her head slowly, and then said, "No, I feel fine. I've been extra happy after the fighting stopped, 'cause they took Compress and Jin to the hospital, and they'll both be okay. I was worried that I scared you away, though." She paused, offered a smile. "I'm really glad I didn't." The conversation, as short as it was refreshing. Not relaxing, mind you. Uraraka thought talking to Toga would be walking through a minefield blindfold. If you could see, it'd be just as difficult. But there was something to be said about blissful ignorance. If the conversation grew towards an uncomfortable topic, Toga would shift away, and she assumed Toga did the same. The clock rolled to 9 p.m., and Uraraka's phone chimed, giving her a reason to leave behind the suffocating silence. Although it was a nice change of pace, there were only about 7 minutes of the conversation to be squeezed from their strategically different lives. Uraraka felt she was overstaying her welcome. Toga, in contrast, thought the time far too short. UA's got a curfew and I need to head back in time," Uraraka had explained. Toga hummed, flashed her fanged grin. "It was fun talking to you." "Likewise." Uraraka replied absently, reading the message on her screen. She stood up, went to leave without giving Toga another glance. But something pushed her to turn around, to reach her hand out. No hard feelings, right? Toga took her hand, shook it viciously, as a hyper child would. Uraraka looked on curiously, but held tightly onto her hand nonetheless. When they broke apart, from the awkward long handshake, Uraraka turned away, heading out of the park and back towards the dormitory. She heard Toga shout her goodbye, and call one back, if only to be polite. And just for a split second, she thought more about that silly smile than the war. Uraraka promptly wished the distraction lasted longer, considering the implications that shook her head. Her earbuds were back in, playlist a little more helpful this time, and shoved her hands into her pockets. Okay, look, I know that says epilogue. I promise it's not epilogue, it's introduction. I just forgot to add that in, and I'm about to go into work, and I can't fix that, unfortunately. And I'm about to upload that into YouTube, and I can't fix that. It'll take me too long, and I need to get this recording done. But, yeah, Kingston, hi, hello, welcome back. I know we didn't see you for a day, but we're back. So yeah, this is episode 1, chapter 1 of A Song to the Tune of Love. So every chapter is going to be broken down into multiple parts because it is 8 chapters, and those 8 chapters have like 40,000 words long. 40,000 words altogether. So like that's like 2,000 each chapter, right? Hold up, no, math isn't mathing. That would be 2 chapters, right? So 40,000, it was 40,000, 2,000 something, 42,000 something. So divided by 8, it would be like every chapter having 5,000, right? That's if it's evenly spreaded. But most of the time they're not evenly spreaded. So I'm gonna break them up. So each part is probably gonna have 2 to 3 parts each chapter. So let's say, as I said before, it would probably be a 25 chapter long, 20 chapter long, episode long series. So we're gonna have a whole month with Kingston, and then I'm probably gonna choose another Kingston one. I'm probably gonna choose Amity and Light. That's the same. No, yeah, Amity and Light ship. Inversion to that a little bit. I know I normally do My Hero Academia, but I'll get into there. But yeah, I did not have time to draw it today. I was meaning to draw the Toga and Ochako thing, so I just ended up getting 2 pictures of Uraraka and Toga and put them together, got a backdrop, made it look like as if they were in the same thing, like changed the lightings, made it look cooler, like light. So hopefully that looks cool. I think that looks cool. I think it looks okay. I mean, obviously it looks like it's definitely, fan made and not like, but it looks nice, I think. But yeah. So far, I'm liking it. This is interesting. So, a villain reformity thing. I love that. I can't wait for that. Oh my god. This is gonna be fluffy. I can tell this. Fluff is one of the tags, and I have not seen Angst be one of the tags. So, this is gonna be fluffy, and I'm here for it. I'm here for the fluff. You also mentioned before that you write a lot of fluff now. And thank you. After that angsty angst, that was the other one, which, I mean, it wasn't very angsty, as I said before. I've read worse, Before My Heart Gives Out, and As My Heart Gives Out still wrench my gut, and like they tear into my heart and then they take it out, right? Trust me, I know what angst is, and that's angst. That's evil. That's actual evil shit right there. And my heart, that's all I'm gonna say, my heart. My heart goes out because like that is actual angst. That is actual like hardcore, not hardcore, but it is really big angst, right? Considering that it's Deku-centric and Izuku's the one who dies. Not a spoiler, the whole premise of the thing is that he's gonna die at the end. Like the book, they both die at the end. Sorry, I like that book and I'm gonna mention it whenever the fuck I want. But I'm liking it so far. It's a really interesting premise. Obviously we have a cool little interactions, and clearly probably they're going to be going to that park and talking to each other and slowly overcoming the hurdle that is, the fact that they were both in opposite teams, and now that war is over, having to overcome, stuff like that. So I really like this. It's a lot of overcoming. It's a lot of the dynamics that I like with Toga and Ochako, but without the unnecessary, well, not unnecessary, but without the extra trauma. Like, don't get me wrong, it's still gonna be angsty, it's still gonna be a little bit of a hurt comfort, because, you know, it clearly mentions that Uraraka has PTSD, and obviously it's right after a war, there's gonna be a little bit of angst, but it's not gonna be like, I don't think it's gonna be hard. Right, Kingston? It's not gonna be like, we're crying because they won't talk and they're having a disagreement kind of thing, right? And I think I did not see slow burn as a tag. So is it not a slow burn? I didn't see slow burn be tagged. So, Kingston, is it not a slow burn? I like my fast burns just as much as I love my slow burns. I know back in the day, I really hated fast burns, but I like fast burns now. Sometimes slow burns are a little too slow for my liking, right? I think Kingston with Villainous, you did a really good job. It was a really well-paced slow burn. We had enough time to have them be together and have those dynamics and stuff like that, while also having time for them to develop. Couples with Toga and Uraraka, it's really hard to get, what's it called? Their slow burn correct. Right? Obviously, you can't make it too slow, but you also can't make it too fast. But, no, yeah. I mean, in certain situations. I think in this one, you can slide by with a fast burn. But, yeah. It'll just be a little difficult. But, as I was saying, right? I wonder, is this gonna be a fast burn, slow burn? By the time you reply to this, I would have probably already found out because I'm a bit ahead on recording and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm excited for this. I hope you guys are excited for this. I hope we're all excited for this. I've been talking for a long time now. I'm gonna go now. So as always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Links to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.